Imagine for a moment the world immersed in the deadliest conflict it had ever known. Picture a battlefield with guns roaring and bombs exploding, and the sky filled with the stench of gunpowder. Amidst this chaos, there strides a man, not with a rifle, but with a sword in hand, a longbow across his back, and a set of bagpipes cradled under his arm. This is not a fanciful tale spun from imagination, but the true story of a soldier who is an anomaly in modern warfare. You're listening to Casual History.
Welcome back, Jeff.
Hello, everyone. This is not the ghost of Jeffrey's past you're hearing. This is actually Jeffrey, and I am back from the dead.
Back and better than ever, and you survived, Jeffrey. I can't believe you made it back. Honestly, I've missed you. The last podcast, I'm sure our listeners have missed you as well.
I didn't miss you because I got to edit your podcast that you made.
That's right, which was brilliant and amazing, but I guess you can hop back in whenever you want. It's okay.
Yeah, I figured, he's doing great without me. I better get back quick so that way you don't,
right. That's what I figured.
Me.
You should have seen him, guys. He immediately texted me and was like, "Hey, man, we got to get right back on this podcast," because he knew.
I knew. I knew that I couldn't let you off by yourself for too long.
I had a hit on my hands, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for bearing with us the last few weeks, as I've been troubled with plagues.
The
plague specifically. The
wow.
plague.
You sound great.
And then a lack of internet,
Yeah, which is just like the plague.
Just like the plague to take out the internet. So just made it really difficult where I wouldn't say we, I'll say I'll take responsibility. I could not record the podcast.
To be fair, you were in another country, so I mean, it's not fault really,
Yeah.
You're traveling.
Made it tough, but got back and then immediately got hit with COVID, which is, I'll say it's the first time I've ever had it.
It's a bummer.
I made it 3 years, so I feel pretty good about that, weirdly.
Yeah. How bad was it? If you could just give me like a scale of 1 to 10, how bad? Wouldn't recommend?
Wouldn't recommend. No, I got the full set of oh my gosh, I got the full set of symptoms. That's what I'm thinking of. I got the body aches, I got the fever, I got, everything. So
yikes.
But I was able to get on some medicine and I'm back to 95% health.
That's good to hear.
I do feel like I have some memory, I won't say memory issues, but more so like
brain fog?
Brain fog, yeah.
Interesting.
So
well, don't worry, Jeffrey. I'm going to make sure you put that on full display today as you read me your
it
podcast.
Just so happens to be my turn to do the podcast.
Yes.
So I did the backstory here, everyone. If you've listened to the intro, which if you're listening to me right now, I hope you did. Otherwise, go back and listen to it. Stop skipping through the podcast here.
Yeah, that's rude.
It's rude.
You should know better.
It messes up our watch time and
what are
our
you doing?
algorithm.
What are you doing to yourself, man?
I do. What do we want to touch on? Anything that's major that's happened over in Nashville land?
Yeah, I mean, nothing much here. Obviously, just the normal day-to-day stuff, and obviously, like trying to make up for, like that was my last thing was last week, was just trying to make sure that we did not miss an episode. I know Leo kind of announced the first week where you were having some troubles, but obviously with the double whammy when you got hit with COVID, I was like, I got to give something to the people, I got to give the people what they want. And so it's been mainly focused on that and kind of moving forward. I'm excited kind of writing my podcast coming up for the next week as well. So lots of really amazing stuff ahead, honestly.
Do you want to hint at what that is?
Ooh, I can't. Not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to surprise even you.
All right, Mr. Man. Well, yeah, then let's get into this week. We've made them wait long enough for those who have been waiting.
Should we make them wait 30 seconds longer?
Maybe. And let's do a shameless plug. Casual X History on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I replied to a comment or two on Instagram the other day. It's pretty cool to see that people are actually listening. It still amazes me that there's people that listen to this and wait for it. So
Yeah, no, seriously, it's amazing. And like, also people with amazing ideas for just like upcoming things, suggestions. So please keep them coming. Honestly, I love hearing your feedback. And also something I've been toying around with the idea, Jeff, and we can obviously take this off the pod as well. But like featuring one of the people, like one of our like casual historians on the actual show.
Oh, that would be fun.
Every couple weeks. It'd be so cool to like highlight some of you guys. You guys have such amazing ideas, and like little stuff that you've thrown at us is really like triggered and sparked different ideas from me. And so I just really think that'd be dope.
Maybe we should ask them to send in a voice note or a video if they feel
that'd
good,
be
if
amazing.
they feel like they want to. But maybe there's a story. Maybe they have. Here's an interesting thing.
We have to give them a prompt, though. We need a prompt.
The prompt should be how you're connected to a history story, whether it's your grandfather, maybe it's your family history that's interesting, maybe it's something you were involved in that was interesting, but something in the history world, part of your family, a story that you know of, anything in that realm. I think we should take.
Yes. Okay. So we'll make it official then. Yes, please do. I would love to highlight some of those stories. Just send it into. Let's have a centralized place. Let's just say,
Instagram.
like, Instagram might be a really good option. So just send us a message on Instagram, a voice note, whatever. We'll be able to pick it up and download it. And obviously, with your permission, we would love to like show and we would talk to you about before we aired it actually on the podcast. But that's an amazing idea. I love that.
We can do it two ways. We can do one if you just feel if the listener, whoever's listening to this, wants to submit something. If you just want to write something, we could read it for you, your story. And the second would be if you want to tell it yourself and maybe write it out as well, just so that way, just in case the audio doesn't come in as clear, just some ground rules, and then send it our way and we'll add it in the pod.
Heck, you never even know. Leo might even read it for you. You never know.
That's really fun. Yeah, we'll figure that out off pod.
That'd be really cool.
Let's jump right in, Jake. All right, so as we open the story today, we find ourselves at the early precipice of the 20th century, a time that's teeming with contrasts, a time when the echoes of hoofbeats on cobblestone streets started to mingle with the sounds of engines and other things that we assign to modernity. And so at this point in time is an inflection point. And there rises a man who represents this so greatly. And so in this dynamic period where the spirit of adventure moved through the veins of society and explorers sought to conquer the skies, the oceans, and the far reaches of the earth, we meet a young boy born to British parents in the far-off colony of Hong Kong in 1906. A young boy named John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill.
That's a mouthful.
A long mouthful. And a few of those names in his existing name are some famous people. Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Jim Thorpe,
the
king of Yale, Oklahoma, and the Olympic great. He won multiple things, but that's not who we're here to talk about.
No.
We come to know this long John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill as an interesting name, and that is Mad Jack. Any guesses on why we call him Mad Jack?
I hope this man. I don't know. Mad Jack, is he bad temper?
No, actually
first
not.
Guess. That's my first guess. Bad temper is number one. Number two, he goes crazy.
I mean, that makes sense with Mad Jack. But I was merely asking that mainly to try to figure out, to get your sense of, do you have any understanding? Do you know who this Mad Jack is?
I have no context to this person at all, which is
wow.
really wild. So yeah, like this might be the first time in a little bit that I have not heard of this actual story. Like I've heard like little tidbits of the previous ones, but this one I know nothing. So you're teaching me right now too.
Good. Okay. So that explained it. When you said he goes crazy or he has a bad temper, that I think that makes sense.
Stabs in the dark.
Yeah, that's fair.
Stabs in the dark.
Very fair. We're going to kind of dive into his life, dive into some cool stories and kind of what led to his legendary status.
Okay.
For those who do know of him, and for those who don't, hopefully this is interesting to you. But born amidst a potpourri of cultures and traditions, young Jack was introduced early on to the harmonious blend of the old and the new. His family had a rich lineage with deep roots that touched both the artistic and the heroic veins of history. His grandfather was an accomplished writer, and his father, Alec Fleming Churchill, was the director of public works in Hong Kong. And so, under the parental guidance of Alec and his mother, Eleanor Elizabeth, Jack's childhood was steeped in narratives of valiant deeds and artistic endeavors. So we got a good mix of life interactions and exposure early on from his parents.
So no temper so far. No temper.
No temper so far. But
no signs.
no, I mean, even as a child, Jack showed signs of what would come to be known as, I'll say this, I guess, in quotes, an unconventional spirit. He's a free spirit. You know, he's a loon. He's a little bit free. Okay,
I can respect that, man. I
can relate to that. You can respect it. I can relate to it.
Yeah, you do got a little bit of that spirit in you, Jeff.
He was he was an avid reader, delving into historic texts and classical literature that echoed with tales of knights, nobility, and honor. And these early interests not only nurtured a rich imagination, but sowed the seeds of bravery, a love for adventure, and perhaps a penchant for the archaic, which he's come to know.
So he's one of us, is what you're saying. He's one of us casual historians. Dude loves history, loves to read, loves to hear about all the things gone by, you know?
You're trying to say if he was in our time, he would be running a history podcast right now.
I think so. I think he'd be running one of the most popular history podcasts of our time. Yes.
We should start claiming that, right? One of the most popular.
The most popular.
Yeah, the most. True. Well, these early interests only nurtured that imagination inside of Jack, right? I'll speak for myself. I can relate to this part greatly. I felt like reading fantasy, knights, nobility, magic, and adventure books when I was a kid led to a lot of core traits in myself being something I am as a person. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I feel exactly the same. I mean, honestly, books and movies were always my escape. And like, I found those were the things that I like attached myself to. And like, it's funny now to think about it, but like, even something as silly as like National Treasure, like something that like sparked actual adventure in you, like that, you know, like Indiana Jones, watching Indiana Jones for the first time. Like those are the memories that I remember, like creating that core, like, okay, you love like the idea and the actual like adventure of those things happening. And so that's what it always drew me. Same thing with like, again, like I read mainly fantasy books for the most part, just because I love like crazy different worlds, discovering brand new things. And like this podcast is also a reflection of that in a really interesting way.
We're able to dive into the realistic parts of it, which is fun.
Exactly.
And so I guess leading off from that point in Jack's life when he was a kid, and it mentions early on how he's interested in these things and how it could have led into his love of the old in his time, what was old and archaic, right? And so in Hong Kong at the time, it was a hub of vibrant cultures and pulsating energies, a land of mystical legends, obviously with the world that he's in and the history that's steeped in Hong Kong, and also a crucible of various traditions all mixed in one. So they played a generous host to his early years as he was a kid, offering a playground of experiences and diverse influences. And it was a place where ancient customs and colonial legacies intertwined and is a big part of the culture. And perhaps it was this environment that allowed the unique that's New York for you.
Yeah. Someone just trying to tell you to keep going, man. He was encouraging you.
Well, I'm going to keep going. So it was in this environment that allowed the unique fusion of the classical and the modern in his personality, painting what would be the first strokes of life that would resemble a canvas that we're going to come to talk about and know and figure out why he did what he did and what led to him being known in history as Mad Jack.
Yes.
And so
I need to know where you got his nickname.
Well, as young Jack grew, the world around him was changing, as I already mentioned, right? It was the time between, it was a transition time, a
Right.
world that would soon to be ushered into a great war, and that would shake the very foundations of human society. And as the worlds of tradition and modernity collided, Jack stood at the center, a young man with a foot in both worlds. And so, to dive into the heart of the story here, we'll take a closer look into the chapters of Jack's life in the war, some stories that come up that made him a legend, such as being captured. And there's some really cool stories. I won't give it all away, but some
I'm
really
so
cool
ready.
stories.
I'm so ready to learn about this. You set this up great, Jeff. You're
Well, thank
firing
you.
all cylinders here. Back.
Thank you. My brain fog is clearing. I can see the sky.
All it took was some good history stories, man. That's all it
exactly.
took.
I can breathe through my nose. We're going well. So let's jump in. At a tender age, the Churchill family actually moved back to England from Hong Kong, and this is where Jack's educational journey began. It led him to the esteemed grounds of King William's College on the Isle of Man. It was in these formative years where the glimpse of a fearless and spirited individual began to shine through. And so, after successfully graduating, Jack took a path that seemed almost destined when you look back at it. He entered the he entered the hallowed halls of the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, a place that didn't just mold young men into officers, but breathed life into legends. And if you look into the Academy of Sandhurst, there's quite a few people that have been known to come out of there and lead extraordinary lives and do extraordinary things.
Dope.
But that's part of the mythos. But young Jack not only sharpened his knowledge in military tactics and leadership, but he developed a fascination that went beyond the contemporary, a deep-seated affection for archaic weaponry. And it was a place where history was not just taught but lived, a place where Jack could indulge in his love for the weaponry, mastering things like the bow and arrow and the longsword. And so it was in this part of history for his life where he was able to express again that kind of juxtaposition of he's in a time where there's guns and things are happening, right, but he's choosing the bow and arrow. And
a badass is born.
And the sword. Yeah, exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool intro for him. But that military academy was just the beginning for him. After graduating in 1926, obviously we know what comes down the line, but Jack ventured at this point in time into the British Army, where he served with the Manchester Regiment. And so in these years before the storm of the war, Jack embarked on a series of adventures that mirrored things like Indiana Jones and maybe where some of the stories were pulled from. But
really,
he embarked on a series of adventures in this period of time. Picture a young Jack with the wind in his hair riding a motorbike across the landscapes of the entire Indian subcontinent. Okay.
Wow.
He was a man that wanted, and a kid, I say man, he was a kid, a young man at this point in time who was adventuring out to life, traveling a lot and seeing the world. And so it was also in this point in time where Jack was able to harness and kind of rekindle his love for archery, a passion that rooted deep in his soul at this point in time. And he became an adept archer, fine-tuning his skills to the point where he actually competed with the best in the world. So he actually didn't just compete. I say that lightly because he actually excelled. He ended up representing Britain in the World Archery Championship in Oslo in 1939. Obviously, as things were starting to kick off. But it's funny.
Name a more badass weapon than like being so good at a bow and arrow, man.
Yeah, it takes a lot of focus. I did it. You know this.
Yes,
when I was a young kid, I relate to him so much.
I know. I could see why you really like connect with this story for you, which is really cool.
I mean, like if I was at this period of time, who knows if I could have been his brother or something.
Dude, he sounds like an absolute badass. But we were talking about books earlier. So The Ranger's Apprentice, stuff like that immediately comes to my mind. For those of you who might not know those books, those were, I think they're like young adult books at the time,
Mhm.
but it's all centered around like a main character that is like this like freak of nature with a bow and arrow. And I always remember loving those books, and so that's why I'm immediately drawn to Jack right now, just based off those like small little descriptions of him.
Right.
Uh,
Well, I mean, yeah, same. Because I think when I was a kid, it was those books, and again, whether they're similar in the vein of the books he read, it does spark a love for like the things of things that are older, things that are just maybe more consistent, things that are of the knights, of the noblemen, of that timepiece. But
yeah,
yeah, and yeah, yeah, just just imagining me as a kid when I was shooting a bow and arrow, and like it takes focus, it takes attention, and seeing some of these people who still do it with modern bow and arrows, or people who hunt, like it takes a certain level of skill.
yeah.
And back in this time, obviously I'm assuming they don't have compound bows.
I don't think you have to assume. I don't think
um,
you have to assume.
so just like another layer of difficulty and thing and like skill that you have to have, and the fact that he was able to beat people and like be world renowned in the way of being a archery championship, competitor,
Yeah,
and like that's pretty insane.
that's pretty
But
wild.
yeah, I don't know if you know what that it's pretty self-explanatory, but it was a stage where basically the finest archers gathered and competed, where the skill uh, basically just competed in archery skills. And
Right.
yeah, he was a competitor during that time. But
Dope.
this obviously is leading to the main kind of core piece of his life and a lot of people's lives at the time, World War. And so as the peacetime adventures were not just confined to the roads of archery ranges, Jack had a spirit that sought expression in many forms. So he appeared in films, taking small roles in random
Really?
movies, um, and basically from military academy to the broad adventures of the world, a series of adventures that painted a picture of a man larger than life, a man not confined by the norms of his time, a man who, even in the peaceful years, seemed to be preparing for something grander. And so, with a bow in one hand and a broadsword in the other, ready to answer the call of destiny when the time came. And it does come, Jacob.
Dude,
It really does.
this sounds insane. Now I'm already picturing. So in my brain, I'm immediately seeing Legolas out there with a bow and arrow, counting, just counting. Dude, honestly, I think that like that might be the most scary thing. Like I imagine like being on a modern battlefield now. If there was some dude that was like this master at like a bow and arrow, why is that almost like not more terrifying? But I'm just imagining like that more of unknown of like how is he so
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. Besides, I think it actually would be pretty terrifying to have someone be that good of a bow and like be your
Right.
adversary, which is
Well,
nuts.
I have a fun fact. Should I give it to you now, or
Sure, yeah.
should I do it
Hit me
after
with
the
it.
ad break?
Well,
Okay.
whatever you want to do, man. This is your podcast. You own
Okay,
it.
I'll give it to you now, and then we'll get into the stories of his life and some pretty insane adventures with the longbow and the longsword.
Okay.
But he is actually credited. Credited is a funny way to say this.
Yeah.
With recording the last known kill with a longbow in action.
Really?
So it goes to Mad Jack. Like, he's known to be the last person to have ever been in a war with a longbow and
Dude,
actually
that's
took someone
wild.
out.
All
Yeah.
these people with like the first guns and they like moving into the modern age, and here he is just with a longbow on his back.
Yeah, in
like
France.
just watch me, guys.
Yeah, yeah, pretty insane.
That's
But
wild.
let's go to ad break real quick, and then we're gonna get into the real interesting bits.
All right, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got the platform that allows you to make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money. All in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters allows you to record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. And then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and with Spotify Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for podcasters, I feel like having options like video podcasts and question and answer polls has allowed me to be creative on a whole nother level. I highly recommend that you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Thanks for listening to that ad. It helps support the podcast.
That's right.
And we just left off with the man who had a bow and arrow in one hand. Both the bow and the arrow, I guess.
The bow and the arrow.
And a broadsword in the other.
And his third hand, yes.
Waiting for destiny to come. And it does end up coming, Jacob.
Okay.
So obviously World War II was no merciful soul. It was, open to everyone. And Jack was there to answer the call. And so he does enlist and not enlist, but he basically is a part of World War II. And that's where a lot of his adventures, a lot of his stories, and his legendary feats come from.
Dude, I can't wait for these.
So the first one being a famous, not so small story is the Battle of Dunkirk. He was there.
A minor blip.
Yeah,
right.
Minor blip.
Yeah,
he was
tiny.
there. So in 1940, during the grim days of the Battle of Dunkirk, Jack was there amidst over 300,000 British forces. And so during the massive evacuation operation named Dynamo, troops were trapped between the sea and advancing German forces. And Jack stood out not just for his role as a commanding officer at the time, because that's also important to note. He goes into the war at this time a commanding officer.
Oh, wow.
But he chooses, again, at this point, a peculiar choice of instrument. He carries, obviously, the ancient weaponry we've talked about, but a third thing in his third hand, as you say, Jacob.
Yeah. With his third hand.
He played the bagpipes.
Oh, wow.
And so the kind of kooky nature, free spirit of him was during the Battle of Dunkirk and during this chaos, when all seemed lost, he chose to play his bagpipes.
Is that who you shoot first? Is it the guy? Is it the man probably like dancing with some bagpipes? Is that the guy?
Potentially. But can you imagine being on the other side of a man whether he's waving a sword at you or shooting arrows at you, and then in the off times that everyone's kind of taking a break for lunch, you hear him singing the bagpipes?
Dude, that's the kind of crazy that I would not want to have any part of.
It's giving Braveheart a bit, right?
It's giving a little bit of Braveheart. It's giving a little. Yeah. It's giving a little like, dude, this guy is like unhinged. I don't know. Right. Like, I don't want to even step near this man.
Yeah. And so he's actually credited with playing the bagpipes during this intense, chaotic situation. And the song he's credited with playing is "Will Ye No Come Back Again," which is quite fitting.
Wow.
You should look it up on YouTube for those who are interested in that. And it was a choice that was simultaneously bizarre and also sort of uplifting. And again, I would imagine that's part of the reason why it sticks in the brains of people who were there and why he's written about is, who is this guy in 1940 playing the bagpipes during something so chaotic and at the time what would seem hopeless if you were a British soldier, right? You're not knowing what's going on, and here's this man in the middle of the sand on the beach with German forces posted up, maybe a mile from you, and he's playing the bagpipes.
You love him or you either hate him. One or the other. I'm glad to hear that it was uplifting, because I think when people think of the bagpipes, obviously, like nowadays, it feels like more of like a negative connotation. Not because it's again, like it's a beautiful instrument, but I think if you were like, hey, I'm in the trenches fighting for my life, and I heard someone try to pick up the bagpipe, hopefully he was good. He probably was good. I mean, there's a reason why he was notified.
Yeah, I think you'd have to be, or he's a commanding officer, so no one said anything, right?
Yeah. Dude, I'm always impressed with that. Like the fact that there are real people that like play drums or some sort of instrument in like war battles, like throughout history, is like a very interesting.
1700s, you're just standing in line and there's the dudes
Dude, warfare back then, it was such a gentlemanly kind of affair. And that's like obviously terrible
Yeah.
to speak about like death like that. But like you lined up in a straight line with your buddies, and then if you got mowed down, you just moved up the
You
line.
took it like
which
a man.
is yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You took it like
Yeah,
a man.
It
Yeah.
was it's terrible to talk light about that, but also like it's wild to me. Like
I think we're far enough apart from it, right? We
yeah,
can kind of.
I would assume so. I mean,
This is our podcast, Jake.
we do what we want.
Sorry.
You know what? Fuck it. We do what we want.
Yeah.
But no, I like more credit to you. Like, think of the pressure. Like, you get on stage to like perform something in front of your friends. But now imagine it's a life or death scenario, and you have to remember how to play Old McDonald. Like, right?
You have to be
like,
on beat.
Yeah,
to keep
you
the
have
march. You know.
Right. I can only imagine that has to be so harrowing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of harrowing, Jacob, that was one of the first
segue.
stories that kind of cemented him standing out in this time frame, right?
Okay.
I mean, while there's tanks and guns going off, he's
Just a bagpipe.
He's shooting bow and arrows and playing his bagpipe. And as we fast forward to December of 1941, Churchill at this point was a prominent figure in Operation Archery, a raid on German garrisons in the Norwegian village of Vågsøy. And it was here that he further solidified his eccentric warfare style, leading his commandos from a landing craft playing March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes.
Wow.
Signaled the start of German supply lines, reducing their capacity to wage war effectively. And so the raid was as significant as it provided the Allies with control over the vital coastal areas. And he was the prominent figure in this operation. And so Churchill's choice of weapon was unconventional, as he wielded, obviously, in his right hand, as we've already discussed, a Scottish broadsword, and a decision that was deep-rooted in respect for historical weaponry and ceremony. And it wasn't merely for show either. With it, he stormed the enemy lines, demonstrating this bit of raw courage that was mythical.
Would you say mad? Possibly.
Mad? Possibly.
Crazy? Off kilter? Lots of names.
the way you just said that.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Amusing there. Oh. Yeah, it was mythical,
man.
Jake, and
Wow. Bagpipes
crazy
are OP.
and mad. But again, key figure in these raids, and using his broadsword and archery and bagpipes to signal his men, and it was successful, and it was a key part of the war. And
That's
so,
crazy.
as World War II raged on multiple fronts, the other campaign that what really solidified his legendary status amongst the other many battles that he's been involved in is the Burma campaign. And it was during this particular time that he emerged as a fierce and strategic battleground commander in the Southeast Asian theater. So commencing from 1941 and extending through 1945, while the broader global attention often centered on the more recognizable European fronts, the jungle and the hills of Burma bore witness to some of the most grueling and intense combat of the war. And he was directly in the mix of this piece of the war.
Wow.
And so for the British Empire, Burma was a key strategic position at the time, and it was a critical supply route for the Chinese forces fighting against the Japanese. And so the Japanese advancement into Burma aimed not only to shut down this vital route, but also to provide a springboard for possible invasion into British India. And amidst this pivotal conflict was our Lieutenant Colonel Jack Churchill, assigned to the dense and unfamiliar terrain of Burma. And so it was during this period of time that Jack confronted a warfare unlike anything else in Europe. The sweltering humidity, incessant monsoon rains, and a thick jungle canopy presented a hostile environment. And more than just an enemy in uniform, soldiers faced the relentless challenges of malaria, dysentery, and other tropical diseases.
Mm.
And so the dense jungles provided ample cover as well, making each advance a game of cat and mouse, essentially as troops tried to anticipate enemy positions and ambushes. And Churchill's presence was a key source of inspiration for his men, not just as a commander, but as he was at this time a beacon of resilience and determination through his spirit, through his bagpipes, through his eccentric ways. While most soldiers grappled with the unfamiliarity of jungle warfare, Jack leaned into his training, Padawan, often leading ambushes and employing guerrilla tactics to disrupt enemy lines. The broadsword, which by now had become an extension of his wartime persona, and everyone knew him for it, because again, you're in the thick jungle, and this man is with a broadsword in World War II. It gleamed even in the dampness of the jungle, serving as both a weapon and a potent symbol of morale for his men. You know, you see your commander out front charging in an ambush with a broadsword in the middle of the jungle. You feel kind of animalistic, I'd assume. You feel a bit maybe like, all right, this is, I don't know.
I have really one
tribalistic.
Really off base question here. I wonder if he ever named his sword. Does it ever end up having a name?
Not that I know of.
Okay, interesting.
That would be interesting. I would be interested to know that. Maybe I can take a look at that and see if I can find the answer in a second. But I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay,
would you name your sword?
I think I would, man. If I like carried it in like a good luck charm, I think I would be really superstitious. I think if I was like lucky and made it through like some really big battles and like survived and was fine, then I would feel like I would have to like name my weapon and always go into battle with it. What about you? What would you do?
Yeah, I think I would. You know, I would. You
got some names off the top of your head? What would you name
Bertha.
your sword?
No, I'm joking.
Bertha. Big Bertha coming at you.
No, I'd probably do something stupid, probably.
Yeah,
like depending on whatever I was interested in at the time, if I had a sword that actually meant something.
Wow.
But you can picture that scene, right? Like,
yeah,
it feels like a movie scene, right? Like leading ambushes in the jungle.
This dude looks like he sounds like he was like living a movie, like straight up was the main character.
Yeah, it really does. And yet, amidst the cacophony of warfare, there were moments of reflection. Nights in the jungle were a symphony of sounds, from the distant calls of birds, the occasional rustle indicating the movements of wildlife, or sometimes the enemy. These moments under a blanket of stars with only the dim light of campfires were periods of bonding. And stories exchanged, songs shared, and in these moments of peace, a brotherhood was forged that would outlast the war of Jack and his fellow countrymen, fellow wartime pals.
Wartime pals.
Input, best description here.
My best friend. Wartime pals. That's funny. I like that.
Yeah, and so it was through Jack, mainly as the center, they navigated the treacherous conditions of Burma, striking crucial blows against the enemy and reclaiming territory. The campaign in Burma was not just a test of military might, but of human spirit and endurance. And that would not be the greatest or finest moment of Jack's life, in my opinion. There's one particular story that really is just out of a movie, okay?
Okay.
And what we're going to get in, let's just jump right into it. I mean, we got nothing but time.
Yeah,
so
let's go for it, man.
We're going to advance the years to 1944, okay?
Okay.
So at this point in time, he has some mystique about him. This
dude's a legend.
Jack, okay?
He walks into a room, people know who he is. They buy him a beer.
Exactly. And so that almost happened here.
Oh, okay.
While on a mission in Yugoslavia, supporting partisan guerrillas against the Axis powers, Jack Churchill and his team of Brotherhood found themselves ambushed by German forces. With the most of his group killed or scattered during this ambush, Jack is credited and quoted and claimed to have played his bagpipes all the way up until he was knocked unconscious and captured. The Germans, likely perplexed by his audacity and potentially recognizing his last name at this point in time, and or mistakenly associating him with Prime Minister Winston Churchill.
I was about to say.
Yeah,
I ever
it
wonder if he
might
got
have
that
saved his
too.
life because they decided not to execute him on the spot.
Wow. I wonder if they ever shared that. Like if his legend grew also that like push it onto the other Churchill as well.
Winston.
Like and they shared.
Yeah, Winston wrote some fine letters, and I'm sure he's loved by some, but he's got nothing on Mad Jack, I don't think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was this connection that potentially they either recognized his name and thought potentially he was connected, and or his broadsword and bow and arrow was stuff of legend, and they decided not to execute him at this point.
Right,
and
he's a celebrity.
Well, yeah, and he essentially Churchill was taken as a prisoner to Sachsenhausen concentration camp.
Oh wow.
Which was located about 35 kilometers north of Berlin at the time. And this camp was one of the first to be established by the Nazis and was primarily designed as a training center for SS officers. And while it held a variety of prisoners, this concentration camp was infamous for its particularly brutal conditions and medical experiments that some inmates were subjected to.
Oh my
and
God.
So it was essentially known as it broke your will, it broke your spirit. But
yeah, that's horrifying.
It did not break Jack Churchill's. Jack's determination to escape as soon as he got inside the camp was strong and unwavering. He was going to get out. And so in the dead of the night, he, along with an RAF officer named Bertram James, managed to slip out of the camp through an old abandoned drain.
Wow.
Let me rephrase that, Jacob.
You're kidding.
He just snuck out of the camp through an abandoned drain.
I hope he taunted them with his bagpipes as he was crawling through the drain.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Just starts playing. Like people are like, where's that music coming from, man?
Yeah.
Just underneath your feet.
Yeah. I mean, it was, spoiler alert, this escape was short-lived.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Way to cut me down right there. I was just feeling it. I was feeling that power of like, nothing could stop Jack. And then now you got to cut out my knees. Come on, man.
But don't worry.
Okay.
The audacious escape that briefly tasted success. However, their newfound freedom was short-lived. The two were quickly recaptured near the Baltic coast, likely a result of the extensive dragnet the Germans had in place at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so, recognizing the potential risk of keeping such a resourceful prisoner, the Germans said, all right, hold on.
Lock this man up, take his bagpipe.
They decided to transfer him to an even more secure location, even though the place in the concentration camp was already known for being brutal and one of the most horrible, horrific, and obviously soul crushing. And so the remote location that he was moved to was a high security prison in Tyrol, nestled amidst the challenging terrains of the Alps. And it was in this remote location of this camp, with increased security measures, that presented additional challenges for any potential escape plans. So they thought.
Oh.
Churchill's stay at the Tyrolean prison was marked by his continued resilience. Despite the physical and psychological torture, he never lost hope. Drawing from strength from his previous experiences and his indomitable spirit, it was said that even in captivity, he would often talk about the future, ensuring that those around him didn't succumb to despair.
Wow.
And interestingly, near the end of the war, fearing an attempt by the SS to liquidate the camp as Allied forces closed in, a Wehrmacht unit led by a German army officer marched the inmates to the Austrian border, where they were rescued by the advancing 36th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army.
Wow, dude. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not glossing. It's just there's there's information in there that I don't know that we even know, but just we're summarizing the life of a prisoner, right? His time in camp, his escape. Can you imagine feeling like you escaped, right? Only to be recaptured and transferred to someplace even more remote and brutal, to then live out a life for that period of time and to still be resilient and still be,
Yeah.
you know, discussing your life like you have a future. I would imagine you feel so, I don't know, locked in that I think anybody who
Yeah.
survived
No.
that, it's insane.
It's so insane. I can only imagine like seeing you know, your people for the first time after that and realizing that like holy crap, I'm out. Like
Yeah.
that. I can only imagine like how much really like I'm sure it first like most people it probably felt impossible that that would happen. The fact that like
Mm.
that didn't break him is truly remarkable. That's insane.
Yeah. And so he was captured, not captured, sorry. He was rescued by the advancing infantry division of the U.S. Army. Jack then made his way to Italy. And with the war in Europe nearing its end, he'd set its sights on the Pacific theater, eager to continue the fight. Even
Oh my
after all of
God.
this, he was ready to go back. However, before he could see further action, the U.S. dropped, as we already know, atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, effectively ending World War II.
Wow.
And it was at
Dude.
this point in time that, you know, he wanted to get back in action, even after all of that. I don't know, shit, like
Yeah.
digging
No.
through the shit, like to get to where he's at, and
Can-
he still says he wants to get back to it. You know.
Yeah, that is insane. And like I can't believe I have never heard this story before. Like this is
Yeah.
mind blowing that there's so much to this. Like
Yeah.
that is so crazy.
And I guess to wrap this up and as a kind of a conclusion here, as the fires of World War II began to smolder and die out, the world began picking up the pieces. And the immensity of the conflict gradually coming into full harrowing view, Jack's service didn't end with World War II. As he continued serving in the British Army, taking part in other operations in his life, even as the world moved steadily into the era of peace, it was his days fighting through Europe and the jungles of Burma that etched his name into the books of history, embodying a kind of heroism that was larger than life and yet deeply human. In the post-World War, he didn't abandon his adventurous spirit either, finding new avenues to channel the underlying flame of adventure that seemed to be his entire life's direction, whether it was surfing along the river of Thames or parachuting into action even at the age of 40.
Oh my God. I can't even do that now.
Jack embraced the life with a zest unmatched, living on his terms alone, resolute in his passion for adventure. And so, amidst all the heroism and grand tales of bravery, Jack Churchill was also a man of quiet moments, of deep reflections, a man who could play the bagpipes with the soul-stirring intensity.
I bet, man. I bet.
He painted landscapes,
Oh, really?
capturing
Dude, what did this
the beauty
man
of the
not
world.
do?
Yeah, he did everything from warrior to artist to adventurer and musician and leader. Like,
God, just keep checking it off your bucket list, man. Oh my God.
Yeah. In Jack Churchill's life came to a close on March 8th, 1996, Jake.
Wow.
I am so connected to this man.
Wow, dude.
Just after I was born.
Dude, that's insane.
This man falls away in Surrey, England, but the legend of Mad Jack, a name earned through a display of countless heroics and underlying and daring bravado, continues to resonate and inspiring countless individuals to embrace life in all its fullness and forge ahead undeterred by odds.
Dude.
And that's the story of Mad Jack.
That is straight up Indiana Jones right there, man. That is straight up Indiana Jones. That is, wow. That blew me away, man. Seriously, fantastic job. Like, way to come back with fire, man.
Thanks.
Like,
Thank you.
You came back with a statement, and this is a really dope story. I'm so happy we got to like share this. Like, and I'm sure there's people listening too that probably have never heard this story. So I'm so excited for them to kind of learn this along with me because I'm blown away.
Thanks. Yeah, no, this story took me by surprise too when I was diving in, and his life really does. Again, you find yourself, at least me personally, I find myself connected to the pieces of things that he was interested in.
Right.
But just seeing him obviously take those to just the full end of the spectrum of using them. And obviously, it's such an interesting kind of period of time too, which I know I touched on already. But when the transition period, right? Like,
Right.
and then the stage was set for heroics and adventure, right? That led into a war that was kind of, again, I don't know, like there were myths and legends that came out of that stage, and he was one of them that like kind of came out unscathed, weirdly, in the way of his like spirit. He didn't let anything in any of the obviously troubles, like
Yeah, the
concentration
challenges.
camp,
Yeah, my
challenges, the
God.
war.
Troubles
like,
is putting it super lightly. Like,
yeah, like
yeah.
he was a hard man, I'm sure, but he also seemed to still embrace all the aspects of art and musician. Like I feel like you have to have a bit of sensitivity to do those things too, and the fact that
Yeah.
he was able to keep that sensitivity.
Why wouldn't you
And-
follow that man? Like that man lives life how like we're told we should live our life. Like not like obviously like in the fighting aspect, but just in his like adventurous spirit with like things that he did, right?
Yeah.
Dude never stopped, like talking about jumping out of planes at 40,
Yeah.
doing all the things, having hobbies that span across everything between like riding motorcycles, painting, music, obviously. Like it's pretty wild, man, to like read that. Like you can't help but like admire that spirit and like wish, like that's a part of something that I wish, like I had more of. Like that's something that like I get why people followed him into battle and was yes.
You too can have a broadsword, Jacob, and you can name it whatever you want.
Wow. Okay. Well, I appreciate you believing in me, Jeff.
Instead of it's like make me like Mike, it's make me like Jack.
Make me like Jack.
For the history nerds.
For all the history nerds, make me like Jack. Dude, but like he literally like you talk about all those like I'm gonna say this, but like all those BS like Instagram quotes and stuff like that. Like this is what like living your life to the fullest is. Like, dude, like embrace your hobbies. Like fully like do things to the fullest. Don't let time stop you. Like it's actually quite inspirational.
Yeah. I can tell you're feeling inspired, that you just want to say, hey everyone, live your life.
Yes. I immediately become a motivational speaker right now.
Yeah.
On my soapbox. Live your life. You got a good life. You got a good life.
Okay, Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's my podcast for the day. Thank you everyone for listening. If you want to continue on, we're going to jump into the reoccurring segment. Jacob's got a game with Leo, which is kind of a fun history game for those who don't know. And yeah, it's going to be fun. So that's the end of the podcast story, but let's jump into the kind of bookend version of this, and let's play some games.
Heck yeah, Leo, take it away.
Welcome back to another game show segment. Today we're playing Guess the Century, where we'll describe a historical event or invention, and you have to guess which century it happened in. Think you've got a good grasp on the timeline of history? Let's find out.
All right. Are you ready for today's game, Jeff?
I'm ready. Pretty straightforward. We'll see
if very straightforward.
If I can get lucky again.
I'm sure you will. And something that was like, I had a really embarrassing moment too when I was like creating this game a little bit was it's all about like obviously guessing the century and just making sure that I knew like when it says like, hey, the 15th century, that it's talking about the 1400s to the 1500s, not the actual 1500s to the 1600s. So that seems like a pretty obvious thing, apparently, when I spoke it out loud to somebody else. But I didn't know. And so I just thought I would pass that along just so that way, you didn't fall into the same trap as I did.
An important clarification. I thank you for
very
keeping
important.
me abreast of your...
Wow, that's college words right now. You drop it.
Yeah, you liked my...
It was great. That was wow.
Thanks. I tried my best writing.
You're doing great. That COVID fog is not affecting you at all.
It's coming and going. I'm glad I have my what I wrote down. Rather than, and I could follow rather than trying to keep it all off the dome. But
yeah, no, I feel that. All right, let's go ahead and hop into round one.
For our first round, let's talk about an invention that did for information what the wheel did for transportation. Ah, yes, the printing press. This marvelous contraption made books as common as bad decisions at a New Year's Eve party. So, my historically curious friends, in which century was this game-changing invention introduced to the world? A. The 12th century, when knights and castles were all the rage. B. The 15th century, when the Renaissance was basically the Coachella of its time. C. The 17th century, when people were busy discovering gravity and such. Take a moment, ponder, and lock in your guesses. Remember, the stakes are as high as my existential dread. So, what'll it be? A, B, or C?
All right, Jeffrey.
I have a guess already.
You do?
And it's tied to a very specific thing in my brain.
Okay.
That I don't think I want to help you by saying what it is.
No. Please don't.
I'm gonna lock. We need to do this on the count of 3, like a good mythical morning.
Oh, okay. Wait,
version,
I gotta.
okay?
I'm thinking. Give me 1 second. I think I might have my answer.
Come on, this is a gut reaction, and
Oh, come on.
Get ready. Let's count to 3. Why don't we?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
C.
B.
Oh, I almost chose B.
Why do you act like I'm right? I'm just that's what I'm guessing.
Listen,
and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please do. Tell me your reasoning.
From my understanding, it became obviously like almost out of necessity from printing the Bible, and so that's where my time periods lie, was kind of during that 1400s is where my brain goes.
I feel like I'm in both. I feel like I can imagine obviously like it being sooner than I believe. But I obviously know that like I think in the 16th century definitely had printing press and like books and like all that stuff happening, and like the revolution, like as far as like the industrial revolution stuff happening. And so
let's see.
That's
let's see
kind
what
of
we
why
got.
I went there. So you want me to reveal the answer now or later?
Let's do it now.
Okay. All right. Let me just flip on over 1 second and just check this answer real quick.
I think it gives a better, here's the question, here's the answer. It's cleaner,
Okay. All right, Jeff, I finally have the answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the answer is B, the 15th century. So you were totally correct. The printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century, specifically around 1440 in Mainz, Germany. So wow. See, like again, I learn something new every day. Of course, you inch me out again on this answer, but great guess. Great guess.
They're just all of these answers, even with the last episode, they're all tied to like a specific
memory that you have.
Memory
See, that's
that I have. Yeah.
That's such a good like way to go about this game, actually, is to have that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you're doing so well. All right. So you ready for round 2?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Time for round 2. We're talking about the fall of Constantinople, my friends. Yes, the day when the Byzantine Empire clocked out for good and the Ottomans said, fine, we'll take it from here. This event was so monumental, it was like the season finale of a long-running TV show, except with more swords and fewer cliffhangers. So, in which century did this empire-shattering event occur? A. The 10th century, when Vikings were still figuring out that helmets with horns were not a great idea. B. The 15th century, when Columbus was still doodling maps in his notebook. C. The 18th century, when powdered wigs were the height of fashion, darling. Ah, the choices. Like a multiple choice test, where every answer feels wrong, but also right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know whether to speak about my thoughts. And
do you already know the answer? If that what you're gonna tell me? It's like, I already know this one, Jacob. Could you just skip this one?
No. I have deductive reasoning.
Yeah,
but I don't know if I'm going to be right about this. Okay.
Okay.
18th century is definitely too.
It's
too high. Then
100%.
The 10th century sounds
intriguing.
Too early.
Do you think it's too early? I know I've flip-flopped both, but I immediately was like, yeah, of course, 18th century, no way. I was like, but I feel like it is really early, Jeff. Actually, let's work together. Let's see if we can figure this out together.
I don't have a specific thing tying me to like, I don't have a specific time frame in mind for the fall of Constantinople, but I feel like there was something mentioned with the Ottoman Empire, but I don't know if that wouldn't be 10th century. The Ottoman Empire. Because I know that's essentially the story, is that the Ottoman Empire took over. But I'm trying to think of what timepiece. I don't know. The Ottoman Empire,
It's
I believe, was in the
ARB.
10th century.
I want to flip a coin. I'm looking around for a coin right now because I don't know. Man, I'll take one and you take the other. All right. So do we want to just claim ours on the count of 3?
Sure. I want to take B.
Oh, well, that defeats the whole purpose of counting to 3.
We'll both take B. If you believe it's B, we'll say B.
Yeah.
Because I think now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know that the Ottoman, the 10th century, because I'm thinking of Age of Empires, is such a weird connection.
Oh my gosh. See, you're trying to but that's the way how you win right there. You have to think of connections and work your way backwards.
I think 10th century is too early for the Ottoman Empire, but that's what's going to lead me to B. So,
all right, Jeffrey. All right. You ready? I'm going to reveal the answer. Okay. So the answer is B, the 15th century. So the fall of Constantinople took place in 1453.
Wow,
this event marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and paved way for the rise of the Ottoman Empire, which lasted into the early 20th century.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. See, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. That one, dodged a bullet there because I could have gone either way, man. It could have been a flip for me. And this is becoming a trend on Casual History of me picking the right answer first and then going with the wrong one. So
that's okay.
Thank you for steering me on the right path. I appreciate it.
Me and my Age of Empires cornerstone.
You're doing good. You're doing good. All right. This one's going to be interesting too. I can already see it.
Round 3, the final frontier. Or should I say the final bacteria? Yes, we're diving into the microscopic world of medicine. We're talking about the discovery of penicillin. This was the medical marvel that turned the tables on bacteria, like a surprise plot twist in a soap opera. Before this, a simple infection could send you to the great library in the sky, where I, your humble history ghost, would be waiting with a cup of existential dread. So, in which century did this life-saving discovery occur? A, the 19th century, when people were still arguing about whether washing hands was a fad or a necessity. B, the 20th century, when flapper dresses and jazz were the TikToks of their time. C, the 17th century, when the most advanced medical advice was, don't get sick. Oh, the suspense. It's like waiting for the next season of your favorite show, but with fewer commercials and more antibiotics. So, will it be A, B, or C?
Oh, gosh. Dude, I'm loving these intros. You do? You already know it? Okay. I
think because I think what's giving them away to me is
it those like little descriptions, little funnies in there?
Well, it's not I guess so. It's just the time periods that it's giving there's 2 that seem preposterous and one that seems realistic, and that's where my brain goes. But I don't want to give away what might seem for you.
I'll give you my guess. I'm going to say A. I'm going to go with A.
You think it was in the 1800s?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that wrong? Is that terrible?
Well, I'm disagreeing with you. No, it's fine.
You're gonna go, what are you going to go?
The 19th. I think it's 1900s. So the 20th.
The 20th century. Okay.
Yeah.
You're probably right. God.
I think penicillin was like early.
Oh my gosh, Jeffrey, you got to quit sweeping me on this. The answer is the 20th century. Penicillin was discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928. Man,
let's go.
I whiffed at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Okay. This was an accidental discovery that transformed medicine by introducing the age of antibiotics, enabling doctors to treat and counter bacterial infections effectively.
Right.
Wow.
Like, I think in the 1800s, I just think of,
I think of mercury and people like being prescribed ketchup for your cold and like stuff.
I think of Little House on the Prairie, and I think of
you're so right.
Like, give you cocaine to
I was literally my brain was like late 19th century. That's where
Right.
my brain was. It's like super late, like nearing that turning point. But it makes sense actually reading it.
No,
out loud,
I
of
mean,
course.
I could see how 1899. You'd be like, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
And-
It was like near the end is kind of where my brain was, but good guess. All right. All right.
Thanks.
So the last one, we're going to go for round 4.
See if we can tie it up here, Jake.
Oh gosh.
Oh wait, no, never mind. I'm up 2-0.
No, there's
I
no
can't
way.
win.
There's no way. This is just for pride.
This is
just for pride at this point.
Okay.
Round 4. This time, we're not just stepping out of our comfort zones, we're stepping out of Earth's atmosphere. Yes, we're talking about the first moon landing, the ultimate wish you were here postcard moment for humanity. This was the event that made every sci-fi writer say, "Told you so." So, in which century did we decide to leave our earthly troubles
Bruh.
behind and take a stroll on the moon?
I know this one.
A.
Yeah.
The 20th century, when disco was king and the moonwalk was not just for astronauts. B. The 21st century, when we're more focused on Mars and beyond. C. The 19th century, when the moon was still just a backdrop for romantic poetry. The tension is thicker than a medieval castle wall. So, what's it going to be? A, B, or C? Make your final choice. And remember, in space, no one can hear you Google.
No need to Google this one, Leo. I definitely know exactly this
Yeah,
one
we know
from a
this one.
song, actually, that you
Going
probably
to the
saw.
moon.
Yeah, you saw me. You saw me.
No, that's how I know it too. It's from Even Stevens.
Oh my. Please, if any of you guys, listeners, were Disney kids, 90s and watched Even Stevens, you know exactly what century this was in, because this never got out of your head, and it didn't get, that's immediately triggered that song for me. And so, yeah, easily going to be the 21st century. Just kidding. The 20th century.
Yeah, I must admit, this one, as soon as I heard what we
It's
were
a
talking
gimme.
about, I'm like, it's so, I mean, like, it can't happen before the 1900s. So it's so.
Come on,
If
man.
we were
The
guessing
1800s.
year, specifically the year,
Yeah.
then this would be a bit more.
Well, I
hazy.
thought this game would be a little bit more easy, because last time when I did like the specific, like the actual date, I was
Yeah.
like, the likelihood of us getting the exact date was crazy, even though you did a good job. Last
Yeah,
week.
don't sweep me under the rug. I did pretty good.
I'm not. I'm just saying. So I'm glad this one was like immediately clicked. But yeah, so obviously A is both of our
A is
answers.
the answer,
so
yeah.
and let's reveal the answer that we
July
already know.
20th, 1969, Jake. Let's go.
Yes, July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11th mission.
I'm a nerd. I went to the
yeah,
space
come on, man.
museums.
Dude, I love space museums, man. Those are some of my favorite.
I went to the one in Mississippi, or is it Alabama? I don't remember.
You probably went to the Alabama one.
It's Alabama. That's right. From Tennessee. It's
yeah,
like
Huntsville.
3 hours.
Huntsville has
yeah.
really, really sick it's not aerospace. What is it? Obviously,
Well,
it has
I
some,
just
like
like
spaceships and
the what's the half circle that you can look up at? Oh my gosh,
stuff.
observatory.
The half circle. Oh, okay, got you.
Not the observatory. It's not that though. They have oh my gosh, they have one in Nashville too. Where you can go and they do like light shows, like Neil deGrasse Tyson
Oh,
does
yeah.
like a history thing on it. What is
Of
it
course.
called, Jake? Do you know what I'm
I
talking about?
know, dude. My brain
Is
right
it the
now.
observatory? Is it observatory?
I don't think so. Gosh, it's something close to that though. I'll have to look it up now because that's bugging
Why is my
me.
brain? I can claim brain fog. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I definitely can. I've always had brain fog. It's just
Yeah.
my normal life. So, okay. Science
Well,
museum.
that was a good game, Jake. I think Leo is getting smarter. He's getting funnier. Whoever's training him and
Yeah,
teaching
whoever
him all
that
of these
is,
things
you know?
is doing well. He's doing a good job.
Oh gosh, now I am like scouring for what this is. A planetarium, Jeffrey.
Planetarium. Oh, I'm so dumb.
That's exactly. I know. I totally blanked on that too. So no worries. I'm sure everybody listening was just
I
like,
can
"My
guess
God."
the Ottoman Empire, but I can't guess what the place is called.
Yep. And that's our perfect segue to that being casual history, guys. Thank
Yep.
you so much for listening. That is exactly our show right there. Hopefully you learned a little bit something new. I know I did, obviously, listening to today's story. And thank you, Jeffrey, for coming back with such a bang. I'm excited to step in and tackle next week's.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you bring. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll keep us posted on Casual X History on social media, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right. Catch you on the flippity flip.